Hello. In this video, I would like to talk about escutcheons, and specifically how they change shape based on the size of the square. So what I've done is I've gathered squares from 5 different manufacturers here so that we can see how they change as the squares increase in size. So let's clear the area here. And the first one we'll look at is from Stanley. Most people who have seen tri-squares are familiar with these shapes, and we'll start with how to discuss them. The actual inlay I call the escutcheon, but then we can further classify it. This is a trefoil, which is a French term meaning for three lobes, and this would be a quatrefoil, 4 lobes, as you can see. And in Stanley squares, we use the trefoil escutcheon all the way up through 10-inch squares. This is a 6. And then starting at 12 inches, they moved to the quatrefoil escutcheon, and they used that on up through their 18-inch squares, this being a 12 right here. So Stanley only used 2 different shapes of escutcheons on their squares. But that was not always the case. Diston, if we go ahead and take a look at these here, used 3. So here we have, once again, a trefoil escutcheon, 3 lobes. Their quatrefoil, which is 4 lobes. And then what I call the hexafoil, which would be 6 lobes that you can see here. And you can see the design is similar across them, with the central circles and then the circles coming off of it. A lot of people affectionately call this one the Mickey Mouse, and they call this one a dog bone. If you turn it sideways, it looks a bit like a dog bone. No fancy nickname for this one. So Diston used 3, splitting, and they split at different numbers. So this is a 10-inch square here from Diston, and it already has the quatrefoil, whereas Stanley waited until the 12-inch. The hexafoil they used, I believe, on the 15, 16-inch, and this is the 18-inch. Going back to a slightly older style of escutcheon, here we have the maker Tidwell and Company from Middleton, Connecticut, and they also used 3 tiers. And once again, we stick with trefoil 3, quatrefoil 4, hexafoil 6. And they broke at the Stanley's tradition of 12 inches, moved up to the quatrefoil, and then the 16-inch and the 18-inch moved to this style hexafoil. And we'll talk about 2 more makers now. Here's Greenfield Tool Company in Greenfield, Massachusetts. And I don't actually know if they moved up to a hexafoil escutcheon or not. Have not been able to find or identify a square of that size that has a either this style or what may be the hexafoil. But they also split at the 12-inch mark. And then finally, for something completely different, this is a small maker, Henry Tower of Millbury, Massachusetts. And here we can see that he has 2 distinct styles that can be found on his. And this, what referred to as a heart style. These are could both be called trefoil escutcheons because they each have 3 lobes, as it were. But we'll call this a heart style. I call this the notched style. And these are used on the 3-inch, and sometimes we maybe see on the 4-inch. And then for the larger ones, he moved to this style. And that's probably just a function of the smaller ones. He couldn't fit this one in the area, so he just sort of shrunk it. So here we have our five examples, and really the takeaway from all of this is just to know that once you become familiar with a single escutcheon, that maker may have used other completely different looking styles based on the size of the square. And many times if you're looking at the catalog of that manufacturer, they only illustrate one square, and a lot of times they will choose either the Trefoil or the Quatrefoil. I know of no catalog where they ever illustrate hexafoil escutcheons. So just because you found the illustration in the catalog doesn't mean that that is the only style that was used or is available, because they're only illustrating one size in the catalog. So I hope you found that useful and interesting, and hopefully gives you a new paradigm, a new way of thinking about the styles of escutcheons that different makers used. Thanks.